Good morning, I'm Chris Fox, and today we're going to talk about writing great protagonists, your main character. So for those of you who haven't watched the video from last week, I would recommend doing so because it is applicable to today's video. Last week we covered how you can use people that you know in your real life or characters from existing IPs as inspiration for characters in your work. So we'll build on that today. Without further ado, let's jump into the main part of the video. So let's start with what separates a protagonist from every other character in your book. Now, obviously, they're going to get more page time. You're going to see more of them. You're probably going to get more of their introspection. We're going to be inside their heads more than most of their characters. But really, at its heart, that's not what separates a protagonist from the other characters of your book. Stories, at their heart, are almost always about how a character changes. So if you look at anything from Star Wars to Gone with the Wind, the events of those movies and or books are really shaping who these characters become, and this is often referred to as a character arc. So how is your character going to be different at the end of a novel versus the beginning? And that journey is central to how well received your story is going to be. So when you are writing your protagonist, it is vital that before you start, you answer this question. What is going to be different about them at the end? So let's say maybe at the beginning of the book, they are not a very good leader. They're put into a leadership situation and they do poorly. And they struggle with that throughout most of the book. You've got to show them slowly getting better, show the capacity for change. Now they can actually prove that, hey, maybe they can be different. And then your climax is going to be them proving that they've changed and can now become a great leader. And you can see examples of this in all sorts of different films, in books, in every type of story dating back to Greek mythology. It's a very, very common theme. So when you are working on writing your protagonist, it is critical that you keep that top of mind. One of the mistakes that I see a lot of people make, and I myself have made, is you're starting out your character as a Mary Sue or a Gary Sue, so they don't really have any room for development because they're already badasses. And that's a mistake. You do want to show that your character is competent, so your inciting incident, the very first thing that you're showing them in your book, should be them excelling in some way. We want to show the reader, hey, this person's good at what they do, because that resonates with readers in speculative fiction. We want to know that our protagonist has the capacity to be kind of a hero. But at the same time, you also want to present some flaws, and this flaw should be central to how they're going to grow. So going back to the leadership example, if they're a poor leader, that needs to be highlighted. We can't show a different flaw like, oh, they're an alcoholic, because it's not going to resonate with the rest of the story. Some random flaw just to make your character not be perfect isn't going to work. So what is a popular way that this has been done correctly in a media that we're all familiar with? Most of us have probably seen the TV show Lost. And if you remember in the pilot, it starts with a plane crash on the beach. And our main character, our protagonist for that episode, is Jack. So what we find out very quickly is that Jack keeps a cool head in a tough situation, and that he is a surgeon. And we get to see him in action saving someone's life. He's very quickly stepping into a leadership role and showing that he's competent and can show someone's life. So now we know this guy is good at what he does. And from there, we kind of get to watch him progress as a character, and it turns out that Jack has some pretty big problems, that Jack is judgmental and looks down at other people, Sawyer in particular, and these flaws are sort of exacerbated as the series goes on. And it keeps us interested in this character's arc as he grows. And they kind of replicated this outward, which is why the first couple seasons of Lost were so successful, because all of the characters had very similar arcs, and we got to watch as each one of them battled their flaws. So in any given episode, who the protagonist was would change. But when a character was a protagonist and when we were getting those flashbacks into that character's background, we were able to see who they were and how they were able to rise up and overcome challenges. So for your protagonist, before you write page one of that novel, think about who this person is. Draw on your own experience. Try to think of the worst moments of your life, of the flaws in your life, of the things that embarrassed you most, the things that you did in public, like, oh God, it wakes you up at 2 in the morning and I can't believe I did that in 7th grade. Think about those things. And how can you channel that in a character? How can you create a character, put them in some uncomfortable situations that are similar to what you yourself faced, and then have this character rise above that so by the end of your book, they've become a stronger character. If you can do that, you've got a protagonist that people are really, really going to resonate with.